Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, no, we're going to find out. Since everybody worried about mechanisms, here's the tiny camera. Here's the tiny color. You just stuff everything back.
What did they do? What did they do?
Just voice the plan and turn it into executive affairs department. Because of my freedom of speech and my capacity. I've made mistakes. I'm sitting here reading this article, not affecting it.
Oh my God.
So you can't run in the ground.
I don't think so. 16 on the boat.
Flying in the parking lot last night. When we were done, we had everything in one of these carpets.
You couldn't put boxers on?
He came forward. Sort of flying up.
And then he kept going in, and he got the officers in there to say I was too close to the thing. I was 30 foot away from him. And he says I was obstructing people coming in. There was 7 on one side, and I was the one on the other side.
There's too many witnesses. There's too many witnesses.
Well,
Nobody dared to come at the workplace. None of them showed up at our place all day long.
yeah, I had seven. I was the only one. Well, there was other people too. But he did it when everybody left. I was there by myself, so there was nobody else there.
you doing?
I'm still breathing, nobody shot me yet.
I should hope not.
I'm sure they want to.
Call to order the May 17, 2023 Lower Saucon Township Council meeting. Kathy, will you call the roll, please? I'm here.
But thank you.
Here.
Here.
Ms. Yerger. Here. Mr. Turcott.
Thank you. All right, if everyone please stand and observe the moment of silence and pledge the flag.
To the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. But don't volunteer. You too.
There you go. That's just me to the screen.
Try to straighten
I'm not sure why it's not connected.
We were marketing.
I don't know.
Can you restart it?
We could. It'll take a minute. Do you want me to start from scratch? Or do you want to try it one more time? I would try it one more time. All right, we just start from scratch? I will.
Don't worry, it's live. That's what I was talking about.
The screen, I'll wait for the projector. Cameras?
We just put something on at the self-storage place. Other places. Start, right next to the self-storage. Little restaurant, like that. Seeing when their thing was every 2 or 3 days.
Yes, you good?
We'll keep trying.
I'll make you record. It's recording now.
All right, so let me just, sorry. I'll let, it doesn't work this time.
folks. We're going to proceed with the meeting now. We had some technical difficulties, which I think we've figured out. I would just offer that it came to our attention that, I guess it was on Monday, Hellertown Borough had a hack of their council meeting where there was some homosexual pornographic video that was shown during the meeting and live streamed out to the audience. We believe that the system that we use is secure. If there's anybody who's tuning in using a system other than through the Lower Saucon Township website link, obviously that is not our system and we don't have any control over whatever you may be seeing. If you're watching it on the official streaming through the Township website, everything should be safe and clean for you and hopefully you have no problems. If you do, please immediately let us know and we will do whatever we can to address it. All right, so council did meet tonight in an executive session. We have two action items from that executive session. First, I'll make a motion to authorize the solicitor to make an offer on parcel Q8-1-6 to offer $100 to Northampton County to purchase the land. Do I have a second?
Second. Yeah, let me just point out that the first issue that we discussed in executive session was the potential acquisition of the property that the chairman just mentioned, president just mentioned.
Thank you. Kathy, would you call the roll?
Mr. Benonis?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon?
Yes.
Mr. Inglis?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger?
Yes.
Mr. Carucci absent. Motion passes 4-1.
4-0.
4-0, no, what? 4-0. 4-0-1. I'm trying to remember what you.
And the second issue that we discussed in the executive session was the procedural validity challenge to ordinance 2022-02, and the court decision regarding that.
And I'll make a motion to not appeal the Northampton County court decision on the procedural validity challenge regarding the rezoning.
I'll second.
Kathy, call the roll.
Ms. DeLeon?
Yes.
Mr. Inglis?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger?
Yes.
Mr. Benonis?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0-1.
Mr. Croce absent.
Mr. Carucci absent.
All right, public comment procedure. The public comment procedure is available outside the council meeting room. I would encourage you to familiarize yourself with it. We are now at the point of the agenda with the public comment agenda items. Only residents and taxpayers only, 3-minute time limit. Let's see here. All right, the first person I have here on the list is Bob Blasco. Bob Blasco? No? Okay. Next is Danielle Yanchuk. Yanchuk.
Okay, first I want to make sure you guys can hear me okay, because in the past, we've had problems before we start that
All
clock.
right, just identify yourself, please, for the record.
Okay, for the record, my name is Danielle Yanchuk, and I live at 2148 Saucon Avenue in Steel City, Bethlehem.
Thank you.
I'm here today to express opposition to the variance application that would allow a cell tower to be built at 4235 Lewis Ave here in Steel City, which my property is adjacent to. Township ordinances require that the proposed 150-foot tower be placed no less than 225 feet from any adjacent property line. The current site plans violate at least 3 adjacent property lines, the water tower as well as 2148 and 2163 Saucon Avenue. I would like to request that the applicant provide the exact measurement from the proposed tower location to all 3 property lines, which include the land each property gained from the dissolved paper street of Randolph Avenue. The variance application falsely identifies this street as a public right-of-way when in fact this is not true. Randolph Avenue is owned and split by adjoining property owners in accordance with Pennsylvania Supreme Court Act 1889. I would also like clarification on the use of easements in the right-of-way. As I understand it, and as an adjacent property owner to the right-of-way of the paper street, we are well within 500 feet of the proposed tower's location, and building around and using the abutting right-of-way without our consent would be prohibited under the township zoning ordinances. So let's talk about the criteria for variance approval. Hardships. The applicant has created these so-called hardships and distance requirement challenges by his own doing from building other structures on his property. Character of the neighborhood. How exactly can you tell me that a 150-foot steel lattice tower does not alter the character of a densely wooded mountainous residential neighborhood, a place many residents chose specifically for the unique mountainside characteristics of Steel City? Detriment to the public welfare. Here we have a multitude of areas of concern. The health of the neighboring residents. The FCC uses outdated research from 1996 to determine the parameters, or what they say is safe with regards to cell towers. Since then, a multitude of scientific research has been published indicating that the existing technology of 2G, 3G, and 4G that's in use today poses serious health risks to humans, with children being among the most susceptible to these health hazards. We have many young children living in the vicinity of this proposed tower with zero proof that their health will not suffer as a result of living so close to a radiation-emitting communications tower, and zero studies done that show the health impacts to the general public when these cell towers are upgraded to 5G. Property values. The Department of Housing and Urban Development considers cell towers hazards and nuisances. Studies have indicated that properties located in close proximity to cell towers stand to lose up to 20% of their home's value when trying to sell. Potential forest fires from tower's backup generator. What kind of power will be used? This tower is proposed to be built in a densely forested area in close proximity to homes. If a generator fire should erupt in this location, it could prove catastrophic to neighboring residents. An out-of-control forest fire positioned just feet away would quickly consume homes before fire rescue services could get on site to contain the flames. How about water runoff from the property and soil erosion caused by adding an access road and removing existing vegetation in order to construct the tower? What tests have been done to ensure that the result of this construction won't affect neighboring residences which are directly below the tower's location on the mountain? I can tell you that my property, being situated directly below the applicant's property, has experienced an increase in water runoff during heavy storms over the last few years as the owner has further developed his land. We are concerned this will only, I understand, will get worse as the land is further developed and the tower goes up. I have lots more to add, but I'm out of time, I understand. I urge council to conduct studies to investigate these points I've mentioned before approving the conditional use of this tower.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. All right, before we continue on with the public comments on the agenda items, I understand that Mr. Thacker has to leave early to pick up his daughter, and we have some resolutions to recognize both his son and daughter, and they're here today. So I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda to interrupt the public comment just for a moment, so that we can make these presentations to these two fine young individuals who have contributed to the township. Is that, so I'll make that motion now. Sandy, second.
Mr. Inglis?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger? Yes. Mr. Bananas?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon? Yes. Motion passes 4-0. Mr. Carucci absent.
All right. And for those who are following along on the agenda, this is item 3B. This is the resolution recognizing junior council members. Resolutions have been prepared recognizing the following junior council members who served the 2022-2023 school year. Resolution 44-2023 is for Rudra Thacker, serving as a junior council to Township Council. And Resolution 45-2023 is for Nitya Thacker, serving as a junior counsel to the Planning Commission, and I'll read those proclamations for the public. Whereas Lower Saucon Township Council appointed Roger Thacker to serve as a junior council member on council, and Nydia Thacker on the Planning Commission, whereas both junior council members participated in meetings during the 2022-2023 school year and provided input from a student's point of view, and whereas both junior council members have done a great job and brought with them the eagerness of learning more about local government in their community. Now, therefore, the Council of Lower Saucon Township, Jason Bonone as president, Mark Ingles vice president, Priscilla De Leon, Thomas Carucci, Sandra Yerger, council members, do hereby recommend Rudra Nitya for their exemplary performance on behalf of Lower Saucon Township and Saucon Valley High School. Resolved this 17th day of May 2023. And again, I would just note that Nitya could not join us this evening as she had a prior school commitment. So I will make a motion to pass resolutions 44-2023 and 45-2023.
Second. Ms. Yerger? Yes. Mr. Bananas?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon? Yes. Mr. Inglis?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Mr. Carucci absent.
Thank you again. motion to return to the original agenda, and we're back at the public comment agenda items only, residents and taxpayers only, 3-minute time limit. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Kathy, roll.
Mr. Benoit?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon? Yes. Mr. Angler?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger? Yes. Motion passes 4-0. Mr. Carucci?
All right, thank you. All right, next on the list is Sean Yanchuk. Sean Yanchuk? Thank you. And I appreciate your patience, thank you.
Sean Yanchuk, 2148 Saucon Avenue. I oppose the Verizon cell tower construction. Township ordinance require the 150-foot tower be placed no less than 225 feet away from any adjacent property line. Property values will decrease on the surrounding homes. The applicant claims hardship that he has no place left to build. Well, maybe he should have planned out the placement of his pool, shed, gazebo, and pole building, all of which I'm sure he had the proper building permits and approvals for. World Health Organization has now listed wireless radiation as a possible carcinogen. Cell phone mass radiation causes an increase in the permeability of the blood-brain barrier in a nerve cell, and an increase in the oxidative stress. I moved to this area to get away from the city and enjoy the view. A 150-foot cell tower is not what I call a nice view. To end all of this, if the applicant wants the tower badly, then place it behind his house. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. All right, next is Bilal Khan. Bilal Khan.
Hi, my name is Bilal Khan. I live at 2153 Saucon Avenue with my family, adjoining the property. And I work at Lehigh University in the College of Health. I'm here to speak against the approval of this cell tower. I understand that in the age of digital interconnectedness, there's huge demand for cellular communication, but that demand comes with potential adverse health implications. It's crucial that you know that cell towers emit non-ionizing radiation, radio frequency radiation, RFR, and that while this is less damaging than ionizing radiation of X-rays or nuclear energy, it is nevertheless significant in its health concerns. And the World Health Organization and the FCC have set guidelines for safe exposure levels, but you should know that these guidelines are based on short-term acute exposure experiments and not long-term exposures, which are what would take place if you were to approve this. Studies have suggested that potential risks related to long-term exposure at low intensity for non-ionizing RFRs. For example, the International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies RFRs as Group 2B carcinogen, which means that it is considered a possible carcinogenic agent for humans. I hope that this should raise some eyebrows. Others speaking before me have argued about precisely why placing this tower where it is would violate existing guidelines. I would like to take it a step further. Let me tell you a little bit about some facts about one of our neighboring communities. Allentown, the city of Allentown is rated #1 for asthma. It is the #1 worst city in the United States for asthma. And that's not because everybody there is violating guidelines. Everybody there is following the guidelines, but the sad truth is that there's always a lag between official guidelines and the scientific facts. And this lag basically, unfortunately, only gets resolved when people suffer and die and there are lawsuits. And it doesn't have to be that way if our administrators were cognizant of the risks. So what I've done here is I have printed out 10 copies of the titles of 20 papers that speak specifically to the carcinogenic nature of long-term exposure to radio frequency electromagnetic fields. And they span the years 2010 to 2021, so all kinds of political climate, if you will, and I hope that you will consider that. I will leave it for you.
Brief word, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up is Glenn Kurtz. Glenn Kurtz.
Good evening. My name is Glenn Kurtz. I live at 2163 Saucon Avenue, directly behind the property of 4235 Lewis Avenue, and I am in direct approval of, or disapproval of the building of this tower. Thinking of building the tower. We moved here in 2004 looking for another place to live, and we found it. And it's a beautiful place to live. It's quiet, it's peaceful. There are no structures of enormous sizes that present any detriment to the community whatsoever. And I feel this one would, and as you have heard, the mountain was previously mentioned to have certain aspects of drainage problems. If this is built, the water tower itself has gravel, some sort of gravel culvert that when it rains, the water just gushes down the mountain, eroding the mountain from the water, past the water tower, right past our house. The water, it's like a river. And I can imagine if something of this would ever come under some, which I disapprove, but if this would ever, the land would be disrupted for whatever reason, it would add to that. And also, it's very dry, and I heard that there's gonna be a generator possibly for something of this nature. That mountain's very dangerous. I mean, that wind goes right up the mountain. I could just imagine what could happen if there would be a fire from whatever. I mean, I know nothing about cell phone towers, so I'm in direct disapproval of this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next is Kathy Fisher-McGovern. Kathy Fisher-McGovern. Okay. Next is Russ Sutton. Russ Sutton.
I'm Russ Sutton. I live at 2133 Saucon Avenue. I live directly across the street where this tower is going to go up. I purposely lived there because I love the scenic view. I do not want a tower sticking up in the middle of the forest. I've been doing this all along. I want to save that mountain. Putting a tower up there is going to be hideous, especially when the leaves come off the trees. It's going to stick out like a sore thumb. There's also a possibility they could add height to this. When they put a road up there, the road that's already there by the tower has major runoffs. It's already come down on my property, and I had to put a dike in to prevent the water from going all over my property. And there's a swale next to my house, which the township doesn't maintain. I had to repair it myself, because they never cleaned it out. And it flooded my entire property. So this is only gonna make it worse and have much more flow of water onto adjacent properties. Also, it's gonna lower our property values. That we don't need, we already have a problem with that. I just object to it, and also the health dangers of that as well, because I'm an ex-ICU nurse. I see a lot of people who have radiation problems. I just don't want to see anybody getting sick from that, especially children, so I oppose this tower.
Thank you, sir. Next is Laura.
All right, my name's Laura Ray, and I had a couple items to talk about. One was the actual addition of the agenda item called new agenda item that was on the agenda. So it
I
caused
think
a
I
lot
can
of
address that
confusion.
for you right away if you want me to. As I understand, that was a clerical error.
Okay. I was just gonna say, if it's a new thing, it should be
Not a new
explained.
thing, it's,
Yep.
Okay,
So,
this just cuts me off. All right.
well, you could have gone on, but I figured I would help you if you
No,
want.
I mean, I think the microphone cuts off.
Oh,
when-
okay.
So, Well,
Yeah, you start talking.
so, and the other, couple things were, the items that have started to be addressed here, the zoning hearing board applications, so, 5A and 5B.
Stacy,
And-
start the clock.
Oh, I thought you did, I'm sorry about that.
No problem.
Go ahead.
I don't have that much anyway.
Okay.
So 5A and 5B, the zoning hearing board applications, so on the agenda itself, it only lists the address, so that itself, doesn't seem to follow with the spirit of the sunshine laws, which I know we talked about this long ago with the library, where, the agenda items should be detailed and specific so that the public would know what they're about. People have become aware of this because we've been doing our due diligence and spreading the word when we see things that are questionable on the agenda. So I would suggest, more explanation on agenda items like this. And the other thing is item 5C, the used police vehicle requests, from the Lower Saucon Fire Rescue, Dewey, and Lower Saucon Authority. So I understand the requests from the Lower Saucon Fire Rescue and Dewey because they seem pretty reasonable, because they're both nonprofit agencies that serve the whole community. I wasn't sure about donating a vehicle to Lower Saucon Authority because as far as I understand, it's really a business entity onto itself. It's not really a nonprofit. I'm not really sure. It's probably some special category as an authority. But I didn't know if it was really correct to be donating to this agency a police vehicle because the authority is specifically serving a certain population. It's not really a general benefit to the overall population. So I don't have enough information on that, and I hope we hear more in the discussion when you talk about that item. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Lynn, just to be clear, from your legal standpoint as our solicitor, do items 5A, the zoning hearing board application variance 02-23, 4235 Lewis Avenue, council review, and B, zoning hearing board application number variance 03-23, 2327 Ridge Drive, council review, do those meet muster for purposes of the Sunshine Act in providing notice to the public as to those agenda items?
Yes, I believe they do, and also for the record, that all the information in the applications are posted on the website as well.
All right. And can you also explain to the public what Lower Saucon Authority is and its relationship to Lower Saucon Township?
Yeah, Lower Saucon Authority is a separate authority organized under the laws of the Commonwealth of the United States. It's not part of Lower Saucon Township, but it's considered a governmental entity.
Within Lower Saucon Township?
Within Lower
provides
Saucon Township.
Water and sewage services to Lower Saucon Township residents, correct?
That's correct.
So the use of a Lower Saucon Township vehicle by Lower Saucon Authority would help to defray their operating costs and thereby reduce expenses that are passed on to the customers, or in this case, the residents that receive water and sewer services from the authority, right?
It could, but also I think the more salient point is that you can donate property to another governmental entity.
Okay. And they are considered a governmental entity?
Yes, they are.
Okay. All right, next is Stacy Mizensky. Stacy Mizensky, did I pronounce that correctly? M-I-S-C-Z-E-N-S-K-I? No, once, twice, okay. Lynn Hill? Lynn Hill?
Hi, I'm Lynn Hill, and earlier it was mentioned that you are not appealing the zoning procedural zoning appeal for the conditional use, for the underlying zoning for the landfill, okay? So I just wanted to say that because all this conditional use hearing is going on in our township.
So ma'am, this is the portion of the meeting that's for agenda items. Are you here to speak about any of the agenda items, or is it a non-agenda item?
Well, I thought since you already discussed it, that it was an agenda item. I thought actually that.
You're talking about the conditional use hearing.
Yes.
So that's not on the agenda, and that's not something that we discussed, did we? Nor in the executive session, so that's not something that's, if this is a non-agenda item, you're welcome to bring it up then, but I would suggest you
Okay.
defer it until later.
I'm going to talk about an agenda item
Okay.
then. This cell tower that they want to put up in Steel City. Haven't the residents of Steel City dealt with enough already that they need a cell tower in their neighborhood? I mean, they're dealing with all this junk from the landfill, and now a cell tower, and that's just nasty. And I hope you do the right thing and don't allow that, because it sounds like it's gonna be in view from people's yards. And, you know, if you would want a cell phone, a cell tower out, you know, in view of your backyard, maybe you could do that, but that just sounds utterly ridiculous. So that's my comment.
Okay, thank you. Next is Mark Ozimic. Mark Ozimic.
Hello, Mark Ozimic, Reddington Road. On the cell phone tower, I'm not sure, somebody thought it might have been there already, but didn't they just put a brand new one up on 412 by the self-storage place? I'm not sure if that was there or if it was brand new. There was a crane there for like 3 days last week. Either building on it or assembling it. So I don't know, you know, if there's like how close they gotta be to work. But is there a specific reason for a cell phone tower in that area in Steel City?
Maybe just point out for the benefit of the audience that the application that's on tonight's agenda is an application by a property owner and a cell tower company that would go before the zoning hearing board to ask for relief from the zoning hearing board. This council is not approving it or denying it, nor has it promoted the cell tower in any way. So the application is on, as all zoning hearing applications go on the council agenda for council to see it, so they're aware of what it is. But the ultimate decision on the this specific application would be made by the zoning hearing board, not this council.
Okay, and it didn't go before the zoning hearing board yet, correct?
No, it comes here first.
Okay. When's that meeting, do you know?
It's on the township website.
I think it's June 30th.
Is that the end of the agenda?
June 30th is a Friday.
Okay. I can look it up.
It's actually May 22nd.
It was canceled.
Cancel.
It was canceled.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I got
June 26th.
Two of them were canceled, I believe. It's been a lot of cancellations of it. Okay.
All right, thank you. Next is Victoria Optoff Cordero.
Good evening, Victoria Cadine, Optoff Cordero. First on the agenda items, I'd like to speak to the executive session announcement. I first want to say that I think it's deplorable that we had to go through not only a zoning hearing appeal, which our zoning hearing board didn't want to deal with, and a conditional use hearing on an underlying zoning ordinance that had 8 deficiencies. I think this township has been around for quite a long time. We have a very learned solicitor, and to have that many deficiencies in a zoning ordinance is something I hope that our township can look through and hopefully learn from, and also learn from the idea that perhaps they should wait to have that happen before they spend a ton of legal fees on a conditional use special hearing officer and legal fees in dealing with the invalid zoning ordinance that had 8 deficiencies. So my comment to that is, I hope also that in learning what happened from that situation and having the zoning hearing or I shouldn't say having the zoning, but having your zoning hearing in December, a few days before Christmas, without any prior investigation or information about this application other than a blanket ordinance which clearly wasn't valid. I hope that the township doesn't proceed and decide to do this again, because it's put the community in turmoil. It's put everybody in a very tough position, and it's cost our taxpayers a lot of money for what we sit here today, where we were I guess, December 21st or 20th, 2022, and how much money did we spend? The second item I wanted to discuss was the cell phone tower. I hope that although you don't make a decision, you just pass it on to the zoning hearing board, that that perhaps there be some direction to the zoning hearing board and hopefully them actually taking up action on it, because we've had instances, the landfill being the primary example, where the zoning hearing board just decided that although the municipal planning code requires that they proceed with a zoning hearing, they just decide to strike it from their agenda. And it looks like, based upon their own schedule on the back here, that they've stricken their May meeting, which may be a conflict again with the requirements to hold a meeting. So I would implore perhaps council look into that situation, because there's also now additional litigation we're paying for the solicitor of the zoning hearing board, who's filed improper legal proceedings called preliminary objections on an appeal, which we're paying for as taxpayers. So that's my second comment. I thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next is Sue, and I cannot read the last name. I think it begins with an L.
Lucrezi.
Lucrezi, thank you.
Yeah, Sue Lucrezi, 1984 West Point Drive. From what I understand, in your executive session, you decided not to pursue an appeal. And I urge you to drop this issue. I'm tired of my hard-earned tax money. I worked for 35 plus years, and I don't appreciate my tax money being dumped into this legal fund that's going to fight that's going towards expanding the landfill. So save us our tax dollars and let it go. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next is, we can move on to presentations, hearings, ordinances, and resolutions. We have Resolution 43, 2023. This is recognizing Michaela Jevich for earning the Girl Scout Gold Award. So I will read the resolution that we have here, Resolution 43, 2023. And unfortunately, Michaela could not join us this evening. She has another conflict. But Resolution 43-2023 reads as follows: a resolution recognizing Michaela Jevich for receiving the Girl Scout Gold Award. Whereas Michaela Jevich has been a member of Girl Scout Troop number 8429 for the past 13 years, and whereas Michaela earned numerous badges and awards with the Girl Scouts, including the Girl Scout Silver and Bronze Award, and served as GSEP Girl Delegate, Service Girl to the Scouting Bar, Community Service Bar, Take the Lead Presenter, Leader in Action, Girl Scout Program Aide, Take the Lead Campership Lead, Take the Lead Girl Co-Chair, and Take the Lead Social Media Lead. And whereas Michaela has also excelled as a student at Saucon Valley High School, where she's in the top 10% of her graduating high school class, served as JV Tennis Captain, Debate Club Vice President, Yearbook Senior Editor, Mini-Thon Event Chair Coordinator, Stage Crew Manager, and a member of the Scholastic Scrimmage and Model UN. Whereas Michaela will graduate from Saucon Valley High School in June and plans on attending Indiana University of Pennsylvania, majoring in mathematics, actuarial science with a minor in physics, and plans to pursue a master's degree in engineering with a focus in the STEM field. Whereas Michaela found time to serve the community as a conservation ambassador, participant in the Wildlife Leadership Academy, Yankee County Junior Conservation School, Heritage Patrol, Alter Server, and Prep Aide. Whereas Michaela is also the recipient of the Forest Conservation Award and the Dr. Frank Prakowski Memorial Scholarship. And whereas for her Gold Award project, Michaela's goal was to give back to the St. Teresa's Church Hellertown and the St. Teresa's Preschool Mural and STEM programming with parish youth to provide uplifting projects that will breathe new life into the parish that has been deeply affected by COVID. She created a fresh, colorful mural along the hallways to educate the youth of the parish about the environmental aspect of STEM. And whereas for her efforts, Michaela will be presented with the Girl Scout Gold Award, the highest honor in Girl Scouting, on May 21, 2023. Now therefore, be it resolved that the council vote of Saucon Township, Jason Bedonis, President, Mark Ingles, Vice President, Priscilla De Leon, Thomas Perochi, Sandra Yerger, council members, wishes to recognize and commend Michaela Jevich for receiving her Girl Scout Gold Award, adopted and enacted the 17th day of May 2023. Lower Saucon Township, Jason Bedonis, Council President, Tess Mark Hudson, Secretary. So I will wholeheartedly make a motion to recognize Michaela's fantastic accomplishment and to approve Resolution 43-2023.
I'll second it.
Mr. Inglis?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger?
Yes.
Mr. Benonis?
Yes.
Ms. Delion?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Mr. Croce absent.
Now we are up to developer items. There are no developer items this evening. Township business items. First item is the zoning hearing board application for variance 02-23, which is 4235 Lewis Avenue for council review. All right, can you just identify yourself for the record, please?
Sure. Kate Durso from Fitzpatrick, Linton, Bubo.
Suman Chow from Wireless Access Technologies.
Okay.
I didn't understand a word she said.
Sue Manchell from Wireless Access Technologies.
Thank you.
Please.
Okay. Just because we've heard a lot of comments, I just want to clarify one thing first about the zoning hearing. The reason the zoning hearing was changed was because originally we were advised that the council meeting was maybe going to change to next week, which then interfered with the zoning date. So they asked us if we would agree to continue the zoning hearing to June, which we agreed to. We also provided the township with an extension and a waiver of the time limit, so there isn't any issues related that the township is trying to hide something from anybody.
Thank you.
We gave the extension. The second is, we are here, we have submitted, our first step is for the variances. Ultimately, if the variances were to be granted, we would go for conditional use approval. What conditional use approval, just for the residents, is that the ordinance identifies what zoning districts a wireless communication facility can be located within. This is a property where the map has identified is a place that's appropriate for a wireless communication facility to be located. There are specific requirements in the ordinance that we need to adhere to. The main reason for the requested variances was that we were trying to not disturb a lot of the woodland area on the site. If the setback variance were not to be granted, we would relocate it elsewhere on the site. But the main reason we requested the setback variance so that we didn't have to clear cut a number of the trees so that we could have a natural buffer of the base of the facility. The second variance is related to not having to pave the access drive. The reason we were asking for relief to not have to pave the access drive was to not create more stormwater in the area than would be otherwise necessary. The other reason is that typically these facilities only require generate traffic about 4 to 6 weeks, every 4 to 6 weeks of a maintenance vehicle. So it's not something that would necessarily need to be a paved surface. And then the third really is not a variance as much as it is an interpretation. The ordinance allows the use of natural existing vegetation to buffer the base of the facility. As I stated, the site is located within a wooded area, so it made more sense to ask for permission to use the existing, more mature, dense wooded area as a natural buffer of the base of the facility, rather than removing mature trees and replacing them with shorter evergreen trees. As it relates to alleged health effects, the Federal Telecommunications Act of 1996 would prohibit the municipality by law from being able to deny a facility on the basis of alleged health effects. The federal government has made determination as to what should be permitted in maximum exposure levels, and that is what the wireless carrier is required by law to have to meet. These facilities operate hundreds of times less than the maximum exposure limitations set by the federal government. As it relates to property values, the facility, again, is allowed by conditional use. This is a determination that this facility, a wireless communication facility, is appropriate for the property and that location, even given that it is in a residential area and zoned RA. And I think another comment was related to the runoff. If the variances were to be granted and we were to submit for conditional use approval, we're required to include a site plan. We did include a site plan with a zoning application which shows ENS, erosion and sedimentation controls, so that we would address any runoff that would perhaps be generated by the site. Typically, when we go for a conditional use and a site plan submission, the township engineer participates in the review of those materials to make sure that the site and the facility would not be generating or causing any concerns from a stormwater runoff perspective. The facility itself is a small compound. It's not going to generate any significant stormwater runoff. But however, there are mechanisms in place in the township's ordinances that would require those to be reviewed by the township. So we are here, as was explained by Attorney Treadwell, because we submitted for variances first, and if we were to get the variances, then we would proceed with the conditional use submission. So we're happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
I think I just have one question for you.
Yes.
You had said that this was identified as an appropriate location for this. Is there a need for cell phone coverage in this area? In other words, are there dropped phone calls along the Lehigh River, along Route 33 corridor? And does that have any effect, if at all, on emergency services and 911 calls and emergency responses?
Yeah, good point, yes. The wireless, or Verizon Wireless would not be proposing this site if there wasn't a need for the site. There's a need for the site from a capacity standpoint and from a coverage standpoint. That would include anybody using a Verizon facility in this general area, whether they're making a private phone call or whether they're making a 911 emergency service call. That is correct. The other reason and desire for the site nowadays is because of COVID. A lot of people are working from their homes and they need to have wireless coverage. A lot of more millennial type don't even have hardline phones, and so the wireless is their only the only form of communication. And so this, if you are on the Verizon network and you were to have this site constructed, you would be able to use that facility to make calls at your home if you lived in close proximity. We will have at the zoning hearing, as well as if we proceed to the conditional use, a radio frequency engineer who will justify and support the need for the facility, because that is a requirement for the conditional use.
I work from home right next to that right now and have absolutely
Yeah.
no coverage.
You had your chance to speak now, okay?
Actually, ma'am, can I go back to the beginning? You said it's a permitted property for a cell phone tower as is?
I said it's permitted. What I said is that the zoning district to which the property is located within is an area that allows wireless communication facilities by conditional use. And what a conditional use means is it's allowed as long as you meet the ordinance requirements.
Okay. And by putting it where you're putting it, do you want to save the trees? Is that?
Well, that's part of the reason we asked for the variance. We certainly can relocate it further into the site, but that will require removal of a lot of trees. And many times people don't want to see all the trees removed. So our first step was to ask the zoning hearing board if it would be willing to grant the relief related to that. We're well aware of what the setback requirements are and the size of that tract.
I'm a little confused. You have properties within the 200-foot radius of Lewis Avenue. And you have properties listed Easton Road. Easton Road is a long way from Lewis Avenue. I'm trying to, it's not making any sense to me. Here.
What addresses are you?
Property address, Easton Road, Lower Saucon Township. And there's another one on the other page.
I think that's the
Property,
where the building.
well, no, that one has where the owner is. Usually the other ones have where the, you know what I mean? So I don't know where those, it doesn't make sense what you have here, to be perfectly honest. There's a couple of them like that.
The list of properties within the radius would have been obtained. There's a map with it from the Northampton County tax assessment records.
You're gonna have to double check that.
So Sandy, I think what this list identifies the parcel numbers, which are part of Northampton County. So if you look at parcel number 1, that's a property that's owned by Lower Saucon Township, somewhere within a 200-foot radius, and it identifies the property address. It's it should actually be the property owner address, because 3700 Old Philadelphia Pike is where we are right now.
Right, I
So,
understand that,
and that would be the same with number 3. I believe that the owner of parcel number P7-5-21-0719, that owner, Paul F. Steckel Jr., care of Margaret Mansfield, that owner is on Easton Road. Not that that's the location of the property is identified by the parcel. That parcel is located within a 200-foot radius, but the property address means the owner of the parcel, not necessarily the physical location of that individual who, they may not live there, they may not be on that property. Is that right, Link?
I don't know, I was gonna ask Kate, but maybe you could clarify.
I will clarify it with
Yeah, I
the
just
zoning
wanna
officer.
make sure.
Absolutely.
The other way, some of them are listed very clearly, that this is the property owner and they live here.
Understood. Usually we just get the printout from the.
It doesn't make any, like I said, it's not very clear.
Yeah.
It needs to be clear.
We will clarify and make sure that Mr. Young has it confirmed before the notices go out before the June 26th.
Yes, because it's gonna, if this was a mistake and there's other properties that are gonna be impacted other than these, then we need to know that. That's all, okay.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No,
I have several questions. Does our ordinance, require paving of the access road?
Yes.
So it's a requirement, so you're asking for a variance for that?
We submitted a variance to not have to pave the access drive. Yes.
So that's really, you're supposed to look at hardship, so that was kind of self-created.
Understood, and if we have to pave it, then we will pave it, but we were trying, again, to avoid having additional runoff that would be unnecessary for a site like this.
Right. But are you providing for site runoff from the site plan of the tower base?
Yes. Yes.
You have that?
We have it, well, right now we're only going to the zoning hearing board, but included in the plans is an ENS plan. Again, that one, if we get through the zoning hearing board and we were to submit for conditional use approval, it would include a site plan review, which would include a review of that.
And I do live next to the property, just so everybody knows that. And one day I was sitting on my deck and I happened to look up to Rocky's property and I saw a red balloon. And when I saw that balloon, I'm like, and then Rocky told me that he was applying for this. And I said, well, you're a property owner, you can, apply, do what you want. It has to go through the process. But he told me that it was gonna be behind the water tank. And when I look at the stuff in our packet for tonight's meeting, and I look at the water tank, it's nowhere near the water tank. It's more between the Anchuk's property and my property. When you look at the pictures and you see the little arrow that goes down, and that's right in a paper street. I'd like to see, do you have with you a plan that shows like my property, my neighbor's property, Randolph Avenue?
Yes.
Where this box is gonna be, I'll call it a box for the area that the tower is gonna take up.
Yes.
And Rocky has 10 acres of land, so why down over by, Steel City is the most densely populated area in the entire township. Did you know that, Kate?
I know that it's fairly dense, yes.
Okay. Well, it's the densest property in the township. So you're putting a cell tower on the edge of our properties, and there's over 250 homes there. So I'm talking about me, but I'm also talking about all my neighbors. So, so I'd like to see that plan because it was very, very, you know how you make copies after copies after copies? It was very unclear on our packet.
I'm not sure what's in your packet, but I have a plan.
Okay, do you have an X? Do you have?
I only have this one with me because I wasn't intending to see anything.
Okay, and Randolph's a paper street.
Okay. Comments of the first, I'm not on the microphone, but comments of the one, we heard what the one neighbor said.
Can we hear this conversation, please?
Do I repeat your question, or want me to repeat my answer? answer. Yeah, we heard what somebody said about Randolph being a paper street and that each property owners would own to the middle of the street. So it actually would make the setback greater than what's indicated on the plan because our property owner would also own to the middle. But we will verify that before we go to the zoning hearing so that we are sure of what the setback is. Because if it was in fact a paper street that has been vacated, I do agree that it would, each property owner would own to the middle of that.
Correct, and when Rocky was subdividing, because it was originally 10 separate he combined 10 acres. Okay, that was way back when he first started building. And I thought that he already absorbed his half of Randolph Avenue. That's what I recall as an adjacent property. This doesn't show that.
Oh, I will pull an old map to verify.
His subdivision.
Yeah. I will pull that.
Okay, so my next question is then, when you look at the pictures and it shows that little arrow thing, I don't know, can you show?
And you're talking about the photo simulation that we submitted?
Correct.
Yeah.
Can you show that up there? The first PDF? I don't know what page it is.
What are we looking for, a map?
Picture page. Well, and that's kind of shown. And you, I don't know, is there a reason why you did not take my adjacent neighbor's picture? Is there a reason why you didn't take her picture?
We can't go on private property to take the pictures, so they would have driven around on public roads in order to take the pictures. They would not, they would not,
Go ahead, Kate.
they would not be taking it first from every single property owners, and second, they typically fly the balloon, which is the red balloon that you saw, and then they will drive out. It was the pictures actually you passed already.
I didn't know what I was looking
No,
for.
we weren't paying attention, I was answering at the same time.
Can you
I
turn it?
believe this is what she's speaking of.
Can't turn that side of it? Yeah, that thing is good. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You learn something new every day.
Well, I was thinking when I said it. Which
Okay.
one do you like?
So that's my driveway. And so if you move the cursor, can you move that cursor?
Uh-huh.
Move it, no, move it back. Now up. Can you see the, I don't know, does anybody have a pointer?
We do have a point over there.
I'm gonna go back.
There is a proposed lattice tower. There's a very fine orange thing with, is that blue?
Yes.
Okay, now, do not know where my property line ends. I'm approximating about right here between my house and the Anchooks. And, so right there, the water tank is over on the other side of their property. Which if you look at the plans there and the paper street things, it shows a little circle for the water tank. It looks like it's right behind there, so your plans don't match up.
I'm not seeing a water tank on our plan.
That's
It's-
funny because you're proposing to put it 79 feet on.
Ma'am, you have to stop the
If,
outburst, okay? You had your opportunity to speak, it's now the applicant's opportunity to put on their presentation, all right? So please don't interrupt again.
I didn't print out all the papers, but somewhere in here you have, a lot plan showing, I think the one you showed me, and it's
Here.
Can't see upside down.
No, no, there it is. Okay, sorry.
Ma'am, this is not your opportunity, it's the applicant's opportunity. You have not, ma'am?
My
Ma'am?
address is not listed.
I'm not here to debate you, this is their opportunity to speak, okay? This is their application, they're here to answer the questions of council at this point. You have the opportunity to speak on agenda items.
Well, somewhere in your packet that we had in our packet, there is, similar map like that, that shows, the properties along the other side of Randolph, and it shows a circle for the water tank, right by the paper street. Wait, is that? I guess.
Now, we can add a water tank on the plan if that is.
I would just wait until she asks you a question, to respond to whatever question she has. think she's asked for anything at this point.
I'm looking, I'm looking, I asked today, I did ask. Apparently you didn't understand that I asked to see the map that showed the location
I have
of
a
the water
copy of the
tank.
map, if you'd like to see it.
Are you talking about the page that's ahead of that, maybe?
I'm trying to bounce around.
I think that's it, I think it's just not copied,
This
they
one?
didn't copy it though.
There, yes, there it is, see the circle?
Okay, hold on.
Look, back. See the circle?
Oh. On
That's
somebody
the water
else's
tank.
property. Oh, on somebody else's property.
Well, that would be the Lower Saucon Authority owns that track, and that's where the big water tank is.
Okay, so it's not on our property.
Oh, it's not on Rocky's property.
Okay, so why are we talking about the water tank?
Because I was told that the cell tower was gonna be behind the water tank.
So
And I'm looking at these maps and I'm showing it in a different place.
The tower is directly across from the township property. It's, if you look at right there.
Right.
And there's the water tank, the circle that you're speaking of.
Right.
And they're right across from each other.
Right, so that's the box where the tower is.
Correct.
And then it's right across from the circle. But I just showed you pictures of my property with that little orange line coming down, which does not show it behind the water tank, because the water tank is, I don't know, how far up the street from me, another, I don't know distance. It would be,
So the photo simulation is taken by driving around different areas and then taking photographs.
that's my
It's-
house,
Mm.
that's the Yanchucks, and that's the water tank. And
Okay.
you're telling me it's right here.
Correct.
And yet I can look at a picture from my house, down my driveway, showing the orange thing, which I'm guessing is about right there.
I'm not exactly sure what
It's
you're
your
asking.
plans, I live there, I know what I'm looking at.
I understand what you're saying, well, I don't understand what you're saying.
What do you mean you don't understand?
I don't understand what you're
What
asking.
did I say wrong?
I'm not saying that you said anything wrong, I just don't know what you're asking me. All I can tell you is that the plan shows from a survey where the wireless communication facility is proposed. I understand now where you're talking about the water tank, and that is on the township property across
It's not the
Randolph.
township, it's the authority.
Authority's property across Randolph.
Banner Street.
Correct.
Right. Right.
And I don't know what Rocky told you. I wasn't privy to his conversation, but I do know where the wireless facility is proposed to be located because it's surveyed on the plan.
Okay, so I guess, you know, I read the 3-page letter that you put together, about the setbacks, and, you know, now the proposed tower, it's supposed to be, our ordinance requires commercial communication towers outside of a right-of-way to be set back 1.5 times the tower height from property lines, existing residential dwellings, residential boundary lines where a tower is not permitted, and from occupied buildings. But we all live in an occupied building that's gonna be there, so where's our protection?
We are set back the requisite height. Well, we have requested the variances, which is why we're going to the zoning hearing board. We requested variances from the setback towards Randolph Avenue to the eastern, moving the arrow, the eastern property line. We meet the setback to the southern property line, and we meet the setback to the western property line.
Right, so you're taking away all the protections that's in our ordinance to protect the neighbors from a cell tower.
Well, we are set back the requisite distance from all of the neighbors across Randolph Avenue.
Can I say that again?
You're saying that we're not set back the correct distance from your house. We are set back the correct distance from your house. We have asked for the setback variance to Randolph Avenue. The property immediately across from Randolph Avenue is the authority property.
That's not how I took it when I went there all this stuff. So I think there's an error in here somewhere. I guess, Rocky picked this area, it says it right here.
Rocky wasn't involved in the selection of where the site would be located. Yes, he is the property owner.
And he has 10 acres.
He has 10 acres.
as an adjacent property owner, I'm opposed to this also in support of my neighbors. So, so I'm opposing this.
You done?
I'm not sure if I'm done yet. I have to look at another
I'll wait
piece.
till you're done.
So, let's see. So I really feel that a hardship has been created by the applicant. And, it will alter the essential character of our neighborhood. People moved here because of the secludedness of Steel City. It's a great place to live. And, you are changing the character. And I really feel that, like I said before, we're in the most densely populated area of the township. And you want to put a cell tower in our backyard. So, like I said before, I'm opposed. And thank you, Kate, for your answers.
Sure.
Thank you.
Kate, I just have a few questions, just for my own clarification. I just want to understand, with regard to the setback relief that you're requesting under section 180-127.1A2A5D, that is with regard to the setback across Randolph Avenue, and the interested party to that would be the water authority where the water tower is located, correct?
That is correct.
So-
That is the closest, we have to be set back from the property line,
I
and that's.
understand that, yeah, I understand, I'm just trying to understand.
Yes.
And we've been here, we had public comment, the water authority was not here to speak in any opposition to what you're proposing, and to seek any strict enforcement of that section of the code, correct?
That would be correct.
Okay,
And we're also required to be set back 500 feet from the R20 zone, which is where those residents are, and we are set back the required distance from the R20 zone.
I understand, okay. And there have been some questions about the location on this property, and I understand this location was chosen in part because it's least disruptive to the trees. If you were to put it on another part of the property, you would need to cut down trees, which is obviously environmentally correct.
That would be correct.
And when you did your study for this location, was this identified as the best or suitable location for this tower on the property?
Well, a couple things go into that. So this property was primarily chosen, one, because it was an area where Verizon Wireless needed to locate the facility, and two, it's a large tract, because given that most of the other tracts around there are smaller, so.
I'm familiar with that. I was in the zoning hearing board when Rocky moved here and he bought the 10 lots and he consolidated the 10, and people came in and complained and said he should put up 10 houses, and he said, I want to put up one house instead of putting up 10 houses, and people complained about that. So I remember this property very, very well.
Yes, and so the location on the property was primarily.
So it's not a lie because I was there, so don't say that.
Was
I
primarily.
don't know if you were, but I remember being there very clearly. I'm sorry.
That's right, was primarily to try to avoid unnecessary tree removals. Could it be other places potentially on Rocky's property? Yes, but again, we're going to the zoning hearing board so that we can not have as much tree disturbance as we would otherwise have.
Right, but just disturbing the residents, that's okay. Okay.
Well, again, it's zoned where the wireless communication facility should be located. By law, that is where we're told by an ordinance to go.
Here a long time too, yeah.
And I've been doing the wireless for a long time too.
And you don't live in Steel City.
Sarah, folks, these people, stop. These people were very, Priscilla, it's my floor. Okay, stop interrupting, come on. You're better than that, Priscilla. Come on, Priscilla, you're better than that. Folks, these folks were respectful to you when you wanted to get up and speak, and yet you're still continuing to blurt out and interrupt them. Would you please provide some courtesy to them? Please, I don't think that's asking too much. You understand what the rules are for the meeting. Please follow them so we can have an orderly meeting. If you can't do that, then please leave the meeting, okay? Thank you.
I do have one more question.
I'm not done yet.
Okay.
All right.
I said when you're done.
Fair enough. With regard to the paving part of this, I'm not understanding any hardship here with regard to the paving. And I understand you're saying that it would lessen the water runoff. I don't know if that's the case or not. I don't know what kind of driveway he has, if it's paved in part, if it's gravel, if it's compacted or anything else. And obviously there's been no study done on that, right?
It's not compacted now. If it was paved, it would be compacted, which would typically create more of a sheet flow than what's there now.
All right. Are there stormwater measures on the property currently based upon the driveway and what exists on the property, the structures and any other development that's
I
on?
don't know that I can answer that question, but I can find out. I don't know the answer to that question about what stormwater measures he may or may not have on his tract.
All right.
That would be a good question to answer, yeah, that would be good, thank you.
So I know Priscilla, you have another comment, then I have something else to go.
Okay, my question is, are you required to have some kind of a signature with the adjacent property owners, like the closest to this? Are you required to do that?
Not under your ordinance.
Not in our, okay, I didn't know.
Yeah, no.
It's been a long time since we passed that cell tower ordinance.
Yeah, no, we would ask for the variances, that's what we do.
Okay.
Okay, so I have just one question. So we have got a list of properties within a 200-foot radius of the 420-35 Lewis Avenue address.
Yes.
Okay, and then we were talking 500-foot setback. So can you clarify what's the difference between these two papers?
So the 200-foot radius is the township requires us to provide a list, because that is what's necessary for providing notice. Okay, the 500-foot I spoke about is there's a separate ordinance requirement that says you need to be 500 feet from a zoning district to where tower, I might not say it exactly right, but basically to where towers are not otherwise permitted. The R20 zoning district does not allow towers as a conditional use, or by right or by special exception. And so we would need to be 500 feet, our tower, from the R20 zoning district. So we confirm that as well.
I want to be very clear about
Yeah,
that.
yes, but the 200 is just what the municipality has chosen to be necessary for notice.
Mark, anything else? Just clarify, by law, I'm not gonna say have to let you do this, but by law it says that you can.
Well,
And then what you're going for is the variance, so we can avoid tree removal and moving it to a different part of the property?
So, we have a right to go to the zoning hearing board to ask for variances. We believe that the location on the property is best for, the specific location is best in order to avoid unnecessary tree removal. If the zoning hearing board were to say, we're not going to give you those variances, then we would need to relocate it in the site and show compliance with the setbacks, and in which case, it would just be conditional use, provided we address the paving and like I said, the interpretation on the, using the natural screening.
Okay, so you could have another place on the property to put it, but this is chosen so you can avoid more tree removal.
That's one of the primary reasons, yes.
Okay, now will the trees help block this tower? If you put it somewhere else, would it be hidden more, in theory?
Hidden more?
Yeah, because if you have 100-foot, 120-foot trees, that's gonna block a 100-foot,
We-
50-foot tower pretty nicely.
We picked where we were so that we could be within the trees and not have to remove them. If we have to remove trees, we are potentially removing natural.
More exposure.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, because if you saw the photo sims, you can see the dense vegetation, because in some of those photographs, you could just see the tower through the trees, and they were also taken at a time where there's trees off it, yes. So nobody can say we took it at a time where, the trees are all gonna be followed up, you're gonna see it more. So we wanted to illustrate the existing dense vegetation that's there currently, and obviously not wanting to disturb more than we would need to, yes.
Okay, and then plant smaller trees that wouldn't have the same benefit as a bigger.
Correct. I believe, the ordinance would, let's just say for the sake of argument, if that property had no trees on it, we would be putting an evergreen screen around all the sides. They, of course, would not be the size of the trees that are there now. I believe off the top of my head, they're probably required to be 6 to 8 foot evergreens at planting. Clearly not as tall as the ones that are there now, yes.
Well, I'll tell you where I am on this. With regard to the setback to Randolph Avenue, the water authority is really the interested party here, and they have not come forward with any opposition to As to the paving, I have some questions about that, particularly with the stormwater measures that are in place, stormwater management measures that are in place. And the landscaping, I mean, that doesn't seem to make much sense to plant smaller trees among bigger trees that aren't really going to provide any additional screening. What I'd like to do is, I'm going to make a motion to table this application for variance 02-23 and ask that you come back to our next meeting with some answers to the questions, specifically the ones that Sandy had brought up as to the properties, because it's unclear to us. I mean, I think we may know, but we'd like clarification on that to make sure that all interested parties have received notice concerning this application. And also, if you could provide us, and certainly this is not the time where you need to submit a full stormwater management plan or anything else, but if you could provide us with some information as to the stormwater management measures that are currently existing and how they may or may not be impacted by paving, I think that may be helpful to our deliberations.
That's good. I have one more question for.
And I will clarify the Randolph.
So I made a motion. Do you want me to add something to the
I will
motion?
second it, but I would have a question.
Well,
I can ask another
you
question.
can ask a question because nobody seconded the motion.
I'm sorry, I just said I second your motion, but I have a question.
So go ahead.
Okay. Kate, the platform, I'll call it a platform, your site area, how large is that?
I believe it's 50 by 50, or something.
50 by
50 by 50 fence compound, yes.
Okay, so
20 by 20.
that would be the fencing around the tower.
Correct.
So the tower footprint would be,
Not more than 50 by 50.
well, I understand that, right, but it was, how far away from the fence is it? The only reason why, go ahead,
So,
I have a purpose here.
yeah, so they have, it's a lattice tower. If I'm looking at the compound, I might be able to rough it for you.
Yeah, I just, you'll have more, you can come back when you come back and give me a specific answer, but I'm just curious. The reason why I'm saying this is because, our trees that surround, our properties are at least, I'm guessing, 120 feet tall, maybe, some of them. And I can't tell you the number of trees that fall down on both, or all the properties of my neighbors. And what would happen if a tree would fall and kind of fall on your tower?
Well, we locate towers in all different areas, close to trees, within trees, part of trees. So typically it doesn't, because of the structural stability and the structural requirements for the tower, I'm not a structural engineer, but I'm gonna say that it's not an issue. They also have these long shorelines and they withstand hurricane winds.
You have weird trees that like to fall down.
But in answer to your question, it appears, obviously it's a lattice tower, so that it's bigger at the base, it tapers up to the top.
I saw pictures, I
Yeah.
have them right here.
So I'm just eyeballing it, because I'm not a surveyor, but I would say the tower itself, based on the fence compound, looks like it's maybe 20 feet from the fence, and it's roughly in the center of the fence compound, and that's just a rough.
All right, thank you.
All right, can you call the roll, Kathy?
So that if they come back to the next meeting, when's our next meeting? Table this to the next meeting, Jason?
June 21st.
I'm sorry?
June 21st.
June 21st, and then the zoning hearing board would be the following
Monday.
Monday. If it goes, things could change, I'm just questioning.
I'm just dealing with what's in front of us, which is the application, and how they get to the zoning hearing board.
Ms. Yerger,
Yes.
Mr. Benonis,
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0, Mr. Ferrucci absent.
Thank you, we'll see you on the 21st.
Thank you. All right, the next item we have on the agenda is the zoning hearing board application, VAR 03-23, which is 2327 Ridge Drive, council review. Is anyone here for that matter? How are you, sir? You just identify yourself for the record.
Yeah, my name's Michael Blair, with Solar Energy World.
Good. It's your application, correct?
Actually, I was simply here
was just asking if you could speak a little closer into.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I simply showed up tonight just in case you guys had any questions that need to be answered about the application, with the, expectations that the zoning, board may actually have, more information than they need from us.
All right, Brian, you have anything you want to add to the application?
No, the township ordinance has, very little specific requirements to the solar panel arrays. They can't be located in the front yard, they can't block solar access to, adjacent properties. So they simply are violating the setback for the adjacent property line with the structure. And it is, as I understand it, it is existing and has been built in that location.
Yeah, that's correct. When we applied for the permit originally, we received an initial approval, which our permit manager, who was with us at that time, incorrectly interpreted that as an approved permit, and we moved to install based off of that. Afterwards, when we found out what the issue was, we applied for the variance. A little more context, on this particular property, any other location that may even be a viable option, would actually create much more visibility problems or hindrance to neighboring properties. Also, would either create drainage problems, runoff problems, or be over top of septic issues, well water, things of that nature, or be in clear violation of other ordinances such as fronting properties and so on. Also, the place where it currently is, if it was broken up into 4 separate parts, creating a 6-inch gap between each of the 4 parts, it would actually fall within permitted ordinance. So our option would be to essentially break it up, make it a longer and thereby larger structure, which would be permittable, or ask for the variance, keeping a smaller footprint in the process.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any questions. Anybody from council, questions? All right, I'll make a motion, for council to take no position on this.
Second?
Jeff?
Mr. Benonis?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon?
Yes.
Mr. Inglis?
Yes.
Ms. Jerger?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Mr. Croce absent.
And do you want to explain?
So what that means,
Yeah.
is we take no position on this. It means that we're not in favor of it, we're not against it. When I say we're not in favor, it doesn't mean that we're not appreciative of what you're proposing here. If we were to be in favor of it, we'd have to pay for this guy to go to the zoning hearing board meeting, and incur those costs, which we believe may be unnecessary here. So what you'll do is you'll go to the zoning hearing board, you'll seek your relief before the zoning hearing board, and, depending on what they do, depends on the direction that it goes.
That's fair. I appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is the used police vehicle request for Lower Saucon Fire Rescue, Dewey and Lower Saucon Authority. Township has received a request from Lower Saucon Fire and Rescue, Lower Saucon Authority, and Dewey EMS for the donation of a used police vehicle. Township staff has discussed the request. They've identified 3 vehicles that will be available this year to donate if council approves. Township staff is making the following recommendations. Lower Saucon Fire Rescue would get the 2017 Ford Explorer SUV with currently 87,112 miles. Lower Saucon Authority would get a 2015 Ford Explorer SUV with 142,450 miles. And Dewey EMS would get a 2015 Ford Taurus sedan with 120,632 miles. So unless there's any questions about this, I'll make a motion to approve the vehicle requests as noted to Lower Saucon Fire Rescue, Dewey EMS, and Lower Saucon Authority.
Second.
Ms. DeLeon?
Yes.
Mr. Inglis?
Yes.
Ms. Jerger?
Yes.
Mr. Benonis?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Mr. Croce absent.
All right, the next item is resolution number 46-2023, which is the Keystone Grant, additional grant money for Upper Town Hall Park Playground. It's always a good one when people want to give us extra money. Resolution 46-2023 Hall Park Playground. The township received a grant for $200,000 from the statewide local services account fund. The total of the original grant submission was for $264,030. The township is asking for the difference of $64,030 from the Keystone Grant Fund, which we were encouraged to do by a representative from DCED. So I will make a motion to approve the grant submission to the Keystone Grant requesting the $64,030 for the Upper Town Hall Park Playground.
What is DCED?
Department of Community and Economic Development.
I'll second. That was to approve the resolution.
That's great.
Mr. Ingles?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger?
Yes.
Mr. Benonis?
Yes.
Ms. Delion?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
All right,
Mr.
next.
Croce absent.
Next item is resolution 47-2023, the Norco grant matching grant request for Lower Town Hall Park top lot replacement. The township will submit a grant for the 2023 GROW Norco grant for the replacement of the top lot, which was in the lower playground closer to the township building. This is a 50-50 matching grant. We would like to request $50,000 that the township will match. Unless there's any discussion, I'll make a motion to approve a grant submission to the 2023 GROW Norco matching grant requesting $50,000 for Town Hall Park top lot pursuant to resolution 47-2023.
Question, or just a comment, it's always nice to see the kids playing there, and I see them
Yeah.
almost every time I come here.
I agree. Is that a second?
Yeah, that's a second.
Ms. Yerger?
Yes.
Mr. Benonis?
Yes.
Ms. Delion?
Yes.
Mr. Ingles?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Mr. Croce absent.
All right, next item we have is resolution 48-2023, the Police Traffic Services Enforcement 2024-2026 Grant Program, the DUI grant. Resolution 48-2023 has been prepared authorizing Council President to execute the DUI grant application on behalf of Lower Saucon Township Police Department. I will make a motion to approve, unless there's any questions, I will make a motion to approve resolution 48-2023 for the Police Traffic Services Enforcement 2024 and 2026 grant application. Do I have a second? Mark? Second. Mark, second.
Mr. Benonis?
Yes.
Ms. Delion?
Yes.
Mr. Ingles?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Mr. Croce absent.
All right, we're up to miscellaneous business items, approval of the April 4, 2023 council minutes. Unless there are any edits or changes, I will make a motion to approve the April 4, 2023 council minutes.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Sandy. Kathy?
Ms. Delion?
Yes.
Mr. Ingles?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger?
Yes.
Mr. Benonis?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Mr. Croce absent.
All right, next is the approval of the April 19, 2023 council minutes. Unless there are any comments or any edits or corrections, I will make a motion to approve the April 19, 2023 council minutes.
I'll second.
Thank you, Sandy.
Mr. Ingles?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger?
Yes.
Mr. Benonis?
Yes.
Ms. Delion?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Mr. Croce absent.
All right, next we have the approval of the April 2023 financial reports. We have the financial reports in our packet. Unless there are any comments or questions, I will make a motion to approve the April 2023 financial reports.
Second.
Mark, second. Thank you, Mark.
Ms. Yerger?
Yes.
Mr. Benonis?
Yes.
Ms. Delion?
Yes.
Mr. Ingles?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Mr. Croce absent.
Thank you. All right, council and staff reports. Our township manager, Mark Hudson, is not here today. Kathy, do you have any report on his behalf, on your behalf? That's it? I'm going to.
Nothing, nothing.
All right, our junior council member, or council, so let's start, Mark.
Yes, couple things. Parks and Rec met last month, and we want to pursue pickleball courts. And we've identified a spot out at the Polk Valley Park where the original community center was designed to go. And we figured this was a nice place to put it because apparently it's noisy and we're away from people and neighbors there. And I think it's discussion whether we put in 4, 5, or 6 courts. And And I spoke to Mark Hudson about this, and I think we're gonna talk to Hanover a little bit and see what we can do to get that ball rolling.
No pun intended.
No pun intended on that one. So that was what we talked about there, and we also talked about perhaps pursuing a community center option over by where the dog park is, where it was originally set up to be where we're gonna put the pickleball courts, which really isn't a very big piece of property. But now, since we own where the dog park is, it'll be a much better situation over there. So it was just a conversation to perhaps start talking about it. Nothing serious with that yet, but just if anybody has any feedback or has any comments on it, we'd appreciate.
What are you gonna do with the dog park then?
It would stay, it would go below the dog park, I believe.
Oh, below, okay.
I think. Yeah, like I said, it's just strictly in preliminary stages, looking for feedback, and if anybody has anything to say. And then, the other thing we did was, we had a nice meeting down at Heller Homestead last week, and we sort of followed up on what we came up with before, with the conservatory, Priscilla, is that what?
Saucon Valley Conservancy.
Conservancy. And we spoke with a gentleman that's a restoration specialist. And unfortunately, I think his technique would be extremely expensive and cost prohibitive to ever really get anywhere with it. So we came up with somewhat of a hybrid plan where we would like to keep the footprint of the barn intact, stabilize the walls, and actually make them more sitting walls, 2 or 3 feet high, because we have some concerns with safety, and we didn't really want to fence the project. We wanted to keep it open for everybody to be able to access. The arch has already been stabilized, so that's in good shape. So we would like to use some traditional mortar methods that our restoration specialist advised. So we're sort of doing a little bit of a hybrid. We're doing some of the original stuff, using the original stones and everything else with the original mortar that would have been used, and then making it just smaller. Now, to do this, we have to somewhat ask Public Works to do some work with some heavy equipment to gain access to the walls that we can either lower for safety purposes and also cost, and also create some grade changing situations so we don't have any more water problems. And we'd also like to remove the concrete apron in front and do something else. Not exactly sure yet, this is sort of a work in progress, but the conservatory signed off on a lot of our ideas. We want to bury the existing stone that's there with dirt, and as the one gentleman said, God willing, we ever get a grant of $500,000 or whatnot to rebuild it, all the stone will be on site, and we can just dig it back up and use it. But honestly, still, what, $500,000 to $1 million to do something like that?
Oh, I'll just reach it in my pocket.
Yeah, it's cost prohibitive. So we came up with this solution as a nice way to perhaps remove the fence, clean up the rubble, and have it as a park that the community can use, take pictures on, and everything else. I think it would be very nice. So, I'm not sure what direction we should go. Do we ask Roger to do the work? Do we have to make a motion to do the work? Any thoughts?
Maybe you should review it. Has Robert been there to see it?
He was there last week.
Was he? I wasn't sure.
He knows what we talked about.
Yeah, I figured it, but I just want to make sure he's somewhat familiar with what we may or may not request.
I think we probably have a conversation with Mark when he gets back, and explain to him what needs to be done, and, the estimates and everything else.
Right, because we have gotten some estimates on the stonework.
Okay.
Yeah, we have gotten some stonework estimates, and do you have those, Priscilla? I never got them.
I never got the estimate.
I don't think Mark ever got them either. I think they went to Roger for some.
I do know that I did find a plan that was done by John Milner Associates that kind of went over the steps that we were gonna do, and it pretty much followed the same lines as theirs. Of course, that was 15 years ago.
But I think we should get the ball rolling on this, so.
Yeah, it's after 25 years, so
Right.
I appreciate your efforts to
Right.
get this moving and to at least get it cleaned up and see what's in there and start rehabilitating it, making it of some use of the township. I mean, it's an eyesore now, or it's a little bit better than an eyesore what it was, and it's certainly a hazard, so this is great for doing the work, thanks. And Kathy, can you just make a note for yourself to follow up with Mark to see if we got those estimates, and if you didn't, to follow up with Roger and find out where they are, and if we haven't received them, to reach out to the contractor to get them as soon as possible. And we can get this on the agenda for the June meeting, and see what's there and improve it to
Okay, sounds good.
get some progress. All right, thanks, Mark. Anything else?
I'm good.
All right, Sam? I just have one item. We got some good news yesterday. The township has received $508,000 of grant money from DCED for Northampton County, allocated for the Eastern Road ball field improvement. So just to provide some historical perspective, we had tried to get this going last year. We got an exorbitant estimate in, it was $2.4 million during the height of COVID, when there were supply shortages and manpower shortages. So we decided to table the remodel of the Eastern Road ball field with the hope that prices would come down and that we'd get some additional funding. So we've received $508,000 here, which is a nice chunk of change to put toward that project. So, thankful. As I understand it, our state representative, Malou McKenzie, was integral in advancing that cause and getting that money, which is really interesting because the location of the Eastern Road ball field is actually not within her district. It's Bob Freeman's district, but Malou was able to get us money for over there, and we thank her for that. And that's all I have.
I have a question about that, Jason. Remember a lady in the audience, several weeks ago, said that the township has a lease with the ball field? Did you ever look into that? Did we ever find out?
I asked Mark to look into that, and I didn't get an answer to that.
Okay, because I'd like an answer. Would you
Sure,
remind
of
him when
course.
he comes back? We actually do own the property. We do own it, so it's not by lease, it's ownership. Okay, that's good to know.
What does improving the ball field mean? Are you looking at like?
This is not
bleachers or-
going back and forth here. This is council reports. This is council reports, okay? It's council reports. It's in the past minutes. You can look at the past minutes. We've had lots of discussions about the Eastern Road ball field. You may have not have been here. You can look it up, okay? All right. Priscilla?
I just have, we got a letter from Upper Saucon regarding the library. Is there an update on the library to show?
We got a letter. I think you read it. It was,
No, I didn't read it. I just saying on May 9th, Upper Saucon Township sent, we got a copy of the letter that they sent to the Southern Lehigh Public Library Association about a meeting that they had, a public meeting that was attended last Monday. So I just wanted to know.
I wasn't there. I have no idea. Were you there?
Mark, you were there. You were at the
I was at the library meeting. I was at the library meeting.
Oh, no, I'm confused. I'm sorry. Okay, so really there's no update then on the library situation and status?
That'd be like,
I'm sorry, are you asking me, Priscilla?
I'm sorry?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking anybody that will answer me.
I gave it to you, and I said I wasn't there, and I read the letter.
I saw the letter that Upper Saucon, I don't know what happened at the Upper Saucon meeting. Maybe you can update us on what happened. I saw the letter, but I don't.
Oh, it's in the letter.
Were you there? That's the question. Were you there?
Yeah, I was there.
Well, then why ask you this?
I'm not talking about this particular letter. I'm talking
You
about.
were there. You knew we weren't there, and you're asking us what happened. And you
You're
knew we were there.
confusing it, Jason. There's two issues here. There's this letter, and then there's the library issue. There's two separate things.
Keep campaigning for Silky.
I'm just stating facts.
Wow.
If you don't understand it, I'm sorry. All right, that's all I have.
Okay, all right.
I didn't hear you,
No, you
Jason.
said you were there. You answered the question.
I was
All right.
talking about two things. Don't you
Okay.
get it?
We do.
Kathy, work, right? Link,
I don't have.
Mark, or.
Nothing, thank you.
All right. Public comment on agenda items. Robert Glasgow.
You love it.
No, I'm gonna hold my comments.
Okay, Kathy, which one
I'll
goes?
just let you sit and wonder.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Kathy, which one
No,
goes?
I've been told I can read.
Laura Ray.
Thank you. I can read.
Stop. Okay, Laura Ray, can hear up there, but there's really a lot of weird static and noises coming through on the speakers back here. I don't know if you hear it.
I
It's
hear
awful.
something from this speaker.
So I'm just wondering if we're still under warranty, hopefully for the system that they put in.
Maybe that's the Helltown hackers trying to get in and put up some crazy pictures.
Maybe it is, I don't know, but I'm just saying, back here, there's a lot of weird static over the system, and it's, you know, for how much was paid for that, it shouldn't have that.
before.
At least we're not looking at, graphic images, so I'm happy with that, but anyway, go ahead.
We wouldn't even know because we don't see them. Watching it, Stacy?
All right, so I wanted to make a plug then for the composting workshop that EAC is sponsoring and putting on June the 3rd. It's from 11 to 12. And it's $70 to register for it, and the township will reimburse residents for $50 of that, and you register online, so you should be able to find it somewhere in the Facebook feeds, the link. I don't know if there's an easier place to find how to get to that. I don't know. So let's see, I think I had one other thing, but I don't remember. Yeah, maybe a comment about the ball field for East Junior Road. So, yeah, it would, see, so there it is again. It would be good to know about whether, I guess, we own the property or not, but even so, it's going to be in the middle of the district that you just rezoned, so I don't know if it makes a lot of sense to invest a whole lot of money in the middle of what might be a warehouse zone or whatever it's gonna become over there.
All right, thank you. All right, Dave Bland.
There's nobody else.
No, there's a couple others on here. There's some huge faces.
All these happy faces. Hi, I'm Dave Boulan, 2023 Atlas Drive, with the council. Don't really have much to say. I'm very pleased about the grant here for $500,000. I think council's done a wonderful job, everybody on the council, getting this kind of money. It's really free, so to speak, free money. I think the last grant we got, it cost us 1% to get the grant, and it was like $1,000 for 100. So congratulations on that. Really pleased about the streets that were paved over my area last year, not my particular one. Bottom line is they're back and they're following up on it so that the sides around the streets are all being done. And every time I drive down 378, I still think about the fact that it bounces and bumps, and here our council's paved the same amount of the area in 2 weeks and dug up the road and done all that. Congratulations, keep working on that. Gotta watch my time. All right, so interesting discussion about the RF tower. I find it interesting that WHO says, well, they have concerns about it, but they also remember they had detailed concerns about holding your cell phone up right up to your ear. Obviously, a lot lower power, also a lot less away. And as everybody knows here, if you're a physicist, that it drops off as the square of the distance. Anyhow, good discussion on that. I was really impressed with the back and forth on the other issue of where the tower is and why it's there. And I really had a question and did ask the gal going out, why is it the zoning board doesn't get it first, right? And because they're the quasi-legal entity. As everybody here knows, they go by the rule of law. And she said, well, in Pennsylvania, which I didn't know, we have to also notify the council a priori. And I think that's a good idea. And I think it's a good idea that people get their say. I don't think it's a good idea that people pop up and give the council their finger when they don't agree. Although I did find myself over here chuckling, and I got corrected for it, which is good. The other thing is, I think if you are a member of the council and you are directly involved in something, I'm not sure you should be able to forward your own personal views as part of as you were just a normal resident like I would be. So that's universal, whoever it is. Okay.
So you're suggesting that recusal? Pardon? You're suggesting a recusal in those circumstances?
Of course. Yeah, I mean, that's a direct conflict of interest. Why would you vote for something you've already said you don't like? Anyhow, that's pretty much it, 17 seconds. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next we have Victoria Cadian Cordero.
Thank you. It's Victoria K. Dean, Optoff Cordero. First, I want to reiterate the concern about the backfeed. I had a very, very difficult time hearing the second application that was before you. I couldn't hear any of it, and I would really hope, I understand there may be a situation that there's some speakers on back order, so I'm hopeful that maybe the township can follow up on that. Maybe there's a different vendor that has them, or something like that, because it's very, very distracting and difficult to hear. The second non-agenda item I wanted to comment on was the conditional use application that's currently pending before Lower Saucon Township. They stated that in waiting for what this township council would do, and you've decided not to appeal on an agenda item. However, I think it would be wise to direct the zoning or the conditional use hearing officer to cease and desist the conditional use hearings, because it would be a waste without the underlying zoning. So that's my second comment for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next is Marco Zimic.
Pass.
Okay, next is George Sutton. Patton? George Patton. This is George. Dutton? Sutton? George? No, there's a George. It says, clearly I can read George, last one. Reddington Road. All right, Ginger Petrie.
My conversation, Ginger Petrie, 2626 Reddington Road. My conversation has to do with the landfill, and I guess the assumption that we're going to go back to square one and start it all over again. Here we are again. You must feel like a woman having her cycle, seeing us at least once a month. We feel like we're at the movies. First, people sitting out here feel that we must be having an out-of-body experience. It can't be that we're fighting for all the things that we are grateful to be alive for. When people are dead, they can't feel anything that we are feeling. I personally am fighting for everyone that loves this land. Plants, bugs, birds, animals, moss on the rocks, trees, and most important, air and water. I also stand before you to ask you to reflect on people that you knew in the past, people that already died, that love this beautiful place, like my Mr. Scheimer who owned the farm before me. Those were the people that built these barns and houses with their hands. Show some care and respect for them and our God for the beauty around us. The feature movie we're in is Groundhog Day. Fighting your decision, we have put the time in out of our lives. We have had to be subjected to listening to the landfill spew their crap about how wonderful they are for more than 3 months. Just like Groundhog Day, we will hopefully have the blessing to wake up and do it all over again. All you have to do is wait until the end for Mr. McNair's summary and then blow it off for your own agenda anyway. So we are paying the bill twice. Oh yeah, just like the subdivision process. Since we're at the movies, I'll throw in a line from Robin Hood. A man fighting for his home is worth 100 soldiers in a battle. We may not be in your seat of power, but we are fighting for our lives. Well, council, we might have to listen to the landfill crap all over again. We are ready to present facts and studies that should have been done with the township or the landfill's money, instead of paying a lawyer to oversee these hearings. You should be paying to know why more garbage is great for the township, not us citizens paying to stop it and you. Finally, I switched to TV. Do any of you watch Yellowstone? Will they fight to preserve the magnificent beauty of their land? You don't have to go to Montana to see beautiful land. It's in my back field and all around you. I might not be rich like the Duttons, but I'm just as tough. They're having filming problems, and maybe we should invite them here and they could do a reality TV instead. Just to be clear, I will fight this expansion coming straight at me with every breath, because it's only happening for one reason: greed, money for the township. You don't have to sacrifice a beautiful place for money. Money's dirty, not beautiful. By the way, you can call me George if you want to, maybe George Dutton.
Thanks, Ginger.
All All right, thank you. I'll make that motion. Need a second? Sandy, second. Catherine?
Mr. Benonis?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon? Mr. Ingles?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Mr. Carucci absent.
All right, good night, everyone.
Thanks for coming.